Let me start this video off with a question. What is tone? Tone, by definition, is the general attitude of a place, a piece of writing, a situation, etc. Tone is present in almost every piece of writing. Shows like Thomas the Tank Engine illustrate that well. The tone in the writing for Thomas is usually lighthearted and safe, with a touch of realism, meant to suck you into the world they're trying to create, while keeping it consistent in every episode for the average viewer. Most of the time. Now, this isn't anything new. Shows like Thomas would dabble with darker tones and stories from time to time, especially in the later model seasons. Locations like Boulder Mountain and the Scrapyard in seasons 5 and 6 respectively were dark and almost otherworldly, and that was the point. The idea was to convince you, the audience, that these places were scary and mysterious for the people and engines of Sodor, and for all intents and purposes, it worked. Tone plays a huge part in making a set and scene like the Scrapyard or Boulder Mountain a haunting and otherworldly place. As stated before, shows like Thomas would usually stick to lighthearted and kid-friendly tones. However, between seasons 2 and 3 of Thomas, most of the show's crew shifted to another project, one that would dabble in much darker tones and stories, and was generally made for older audiences. A little show you might have heard of, called Tugs. Now, if you don't know what Tugs is, first off, I don't blame you.
But for a brief summary,
Tugs was the short-lived sister series of Thomas the Tank Engine, made by the same people in the same studio with the same technology. Due to an unfortunate string of circumstances, the show didn't last past its first season. Not much is known about its production other than that it was fraught with problems. The episodes that are available are highly revered by many, so much so that there's been fan recreations of the props, certain episode scenes, and even some unofficial merchandise which you can wear proudly. If you want a more in-depth retrospective on Tugs and a dive into the iceberg of known information, then I recommend this video by The Unlucky Tug and this video by EN2. Both are highly entertaining and explain far more than I ever could. Now, on to my point. Tugs has had its fair share of fantastic and well-written stories, full of good characters and a ton of charm and great humor. Most of the fan favorites are episodes with these said traits, episodes like Pirate, High Tide, Jinxed, etc. All fantastic in their own right, and all with their own unique qualities, sometimes with pretty funny results.
Okay, boomer!
However, something Tugs really liked to play with was explosives.
Today on Meth Combusters.
Nah, just messing around. Although, considering David Mitten's time on some Jerry Anderson productions, this isn't entirely out of the question. No, Tugs really liked to play with tone. The tone of certain episodes could shift on a dime. Take the scene from Pirate, for example, where it goes from happy to mysterious in a single jump cut.
Must be tired.
Night, 10 cents. Night, sunshine.
Good night, Grampus.
That night, a shadowy vessel slid into the harbor.
Aha. This looks like what I'm after. Engineering parts.
While this is one of the more extreme examples, it does illustrate my point. The tone can shift in the blink of an eye, depending on the storyline or scene. This tended to happen a lot on this show, but for good reason. That being, Tugs was meant for older kids, hence the heavy tone shifts. Now, why do I say all this? So I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. Tone matters. And nowhere is it displayed better in this show, in my opinion, than the episode Ghosts. Ghosts is the 9th episode of Tugs. It follows many of its leads, and even a few side characters as they have some haunting experiences around the port. While Big Mac heads back to the pier after a long day of working with Scuttlebutt Pete, he sees what he can only describe as a ghost fleet, drifting silently through the fog. As he races into port, he worriedly talks about his experience to the other tugs. Naturally, they don't believe him, and even start mocking him for it. Everyone sets off the next morning for their duties. OJ hangs behind a bit to comfort Big Mac.
You'll mind them, the fog plays funny tricks on us.
Only for him to immediately turn around and make fun of him while he's still in earshot.
But ghosts, Big Mac.
Told you the show had some good moments. Later that night, the rest of the tugs have their own experiences with the ghost fleet, each a little more intense than the last, until near the end, when 10 Cents and Sunshine see a galleon, and what they assume to be the face of King Neptune. By morning, they're all scared to death until Hercules returns and explains almost everything. Ghosts, as you might have guessed, is a ghost story, and ghost stories tend to work well because of tone. Sometimes it may be a light-hearted tone like Casper, or it may be an eerie, scary tone like Christine. Tone is essential for a story like this to work, and Ghosts is no exception. Let's break it down, shall we? Visuals help convey the overall feelings of a certain place or set. If you want to convey warm, happy feelings, you have bright and colorful visuals. If you want dark and mysterious feelings, either towards a character or location, you have cold and dark visuals. This applies in full to Ghosts. 95% of the episode is set at night with thick fog. Fog is a fantastic tool to help set tone visually. It helps obscure otherwise familiar locations and makes them feel more haunting and mysterious. A great example of this is this scene, where OJ is steaming through the old inlet. Everything is obscured. OJ, and by extension the audience, can only make out silhouettes of different cranes. This scene with Zoran is another great example. As he gets further out of port, less and less is visible, until all we can see is the wall of fog in front of him. And for a second or two, that's all we see, until the ghost tugs move silently out of the fog. The fog is used to obscure areas in the port, and make them unrecognizable, therefore making them creepy and foreboding to the characters and the audience. We can see this as soon as the episode starts, too. It's big city port, but the fog helps make it look off-putting. The galleon scene, as you might have guessed, is genuinely one of the best parts of the episode. The visuals here are some of the most beautifully terrifying I think I've ever seen. The galleon slowly rising to the surface of the water is so captivating to watch. It draws you in, while creeping you out at the same time. And then without warning, BAM! You're hit with some of the most terrifying imagery a show like this could possibly throw at you. Lightning striking all around the old ship. The face of King Neptune appears and disappears in the clouds over and over, the water bubbling and the wind whistling wildly, the ghostly choir of the music blaring in the background all the while. And then as quickly as it started, the fog falls like a wispy white curtain, and the horror of the scene ends. That is, as you might agree, one hell of a scene. Narration can sometimes be a mixed bag. Sometimes it can be annoying and take away from the experience of what you're watching. Just look at the Nitrogen era of Thomas if you want a good example.
Oh no, everyone is going to laugh at me because I'm pink.
James didn't want to be laughed at.
You don't think we didn't know that? In the case of Tugs, however, the narration helps the story's flow. All of Tugs' narration was done by the late Patrick Allen, who gave a fantastic performance as Captain Star. He narrates every episode in the past tense as he recounts notable events that happened during his time as captain.
The big city port was in the grips of winter. It had come earlier than expected, and with it came the fog. None of us like fog, but in those days, it was worse. Tugs had no radio and no radar.
While the narration in Ghosts is still there, it's restricted in the more intense moments. When Alan does speak, he's only using few choice words to help sell the creepiness of the night scenes. His descriptions of the old buildings and shadows invoke a sense that something ethereal and otherworldly is about to happen.
As he passed derelict buildings, they seemed to take on ghostly shapes. They groaned and creaked as if they were alive.
The voice acting is stellar too. Going back to my Thomas example, you seeing a pattern here? Thomas had a sole person who would act as all the characters and the narrator.
A special visitor had arrived and was now the center of attention.
Who is that?
Whispered Thomas to Duck. That, said Duck proudly, is a celebrity. A what? Asked Percy.
For a show like Thomas, it works well, since it's based off the Railway series, so it only makes sense that the stories would be laid out and told like a parent would tell these stories to their kid. Tugs, on the other hand, was unique in that it had an individual cast for all the characters, so the dialogue and interactions between them feel so much more natural, like they've known each other for years and this is just a daily thing for them.
Sunshine! Only good for day workers here. Might brighten you up a bit, Top Hat. I resent that.
You'd totally believe they've been working together for a long while. As stated before, all the Tugs flat out don't believe Big Mac at first, and even mock him for his ramblings.
You seen what?
Oh, Big Mac, you're not taking scuttlebutt stories for real, are you?
That is until the next evening, when they all have their own run-ins with the fleet. The sheer terror in their voices upon seeing the fleet are both hilarious and terrifying at the same time.
Who are they? I don't believe. Yes, I do. It's what Big Mac saw. The ghost fleet. It's a ghost fleet.
It's the ghosts. It's Big Mac's ghost fleet. Oh no! They can't get me.
No, I'm saying things. They're there. It's the ghost Tugs. Right before my eyes. Yeah. Oh, the ghost fleet. It's true.
They haven't seen me. No, they miss me. Oh, God.
Oh, listen, everybody. I've seen ghost Tugs for myself.
We've all seen that. 10 Cents and Sunshine has seen a galleon, too.
But these were ghosts, I assure you. I saw them, really. Silent phantoms of the sea.
The voice actors can play the terrified card extremely well. It definitely helps to sell how scared the Tugs themselves actually are, even after the sun had come up and the truth was revealed to them. The final line from Captain Star definitely helps to keep that tone, even after the resolve.
Later on, Star Tugs found they could laugh about it. But they never forgot the fog that nearly sent them crazy.
Tugs' score was made and provided by Thomas's composers Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell, who made it the show's own. The intro alone is one of the most soulful and inspired pieces a show like this could ever have. The show had the best soundtrack. In Ghosts, the score is all its own. The ghostly choir that plays whenever the ghost Tugs are on screen is one of the most chilling pieces of music I've ever heard.
What? Who are they? I don't believe.
The small music cues in the background before and after each Ghost Fleet sighting help to raise the tension during the scenes where they're present. During the galleon scene, the build-up in the music is slow at first, but climbs so high so fast. The music starts off with that unmistakable bell toll, and then the music blares, giving us its haunting sound. The choir rises all the while, then fades slowly as the old ship rises. Then the music starts. The choir and music sync in a terrifying tune. As lightning strikes, the sparks are thrown and the face of Neptune appears in the sky. And just like the wall of fog rolling back, the music falls away too, as the tension of the scene slowly releases its grip. The score for this episode is outstandingly unnerving. From every little cue to the overall score, even at the end when Captain Star gives the final narration, the choir still sings as the otherwise normal theme plays us out.
Hercules, behind you!
That's your ghostly galleon.
They watched with embarrassment as Burke and Blair towed away the rotting galleon.
Even while watching the old galleon being towed away, you get the sense that even if it was only the fog, it still feels like the old vessel is haunted in a way. This, along with the narration, bookends this episode on a very eerie note. Now, where does this leave us? Why have I spent so much time talking about the technicals of an episode from a TV show that barely anyone remembers? Because it's worth your time. All the way through its 15-minute runtime, Ghosts invokes a sense of fear. Fear of the unknown. And that fear is there because of its expertly composed score, fantastically eerie visuals, and its perfect voice cast. All of which combine for the episode's near-perfect tone. Ghosts is a tonal masterpiece from beginning to end. It's obvious that the crew spent as much time as possible putting effort into every shot, from a few second scenes to long shots of the port covered in its thick layer of fog. They knew what they were doing, and it paid off immensely. This doesn't just go for Ghosts, however, this goes for every episode of the series. All told, the crew gave us one of the best episodes of Tugs. An expertly crafted, visually stunning episode with heart-stopping music and the best cast a show like this could ever have. Ghosts is an absolute gem of an episode with a perfect tone. Thanks for watching.